A strange demand, but Tanith would humor it as well as she could. At the very least, this was something she could actually do. She bowed her head slightly, making sure to keep the mask over her mouth so that the Tarnished couldn't see her small hint of an amused smile at this request. Even if this was a Tarnished to be kept on close watch, he was still quite an entertaining one to be around. There, now you have my forgiveness on that. What next is it you require?
I would like to meet with your lord, Raigard, soon, but I have still some business to do to commit to the Volcanominder's requests.
She didn't know why the Tarnished would wish to meet the Lord. Was it simple curiosity, or was there an actual request to be asked of him? If the last, she would have to deny him. Raigard was not one to be bothered for little reason. Still, she would entertain the request. At least for now. Your desire is unexpected, that's for sure. What business with him do you have, Tarnished?
Oh, I would like to meet with him personally. I would like to have intellectual discussions with him. So, but not now. Right now I would like to have interactions with you, Miss Tanith. Thank you for your hospitality thus far. It has been quite a pleasure.
Perhaps there was more to this Tarnished than she first thought. It would be rare for one to come to this manor with such a request. This one was becoming more and more interesting by the second. She would hold herself back as well. Not until she was sure this one was not simply all pomp. For now, she would play along. At least until she was sure that this Tarnished could prove his worth. To herself and to the Lord as well. Very well then. You may stay a while longer. Now, that was a surprise. To think that Tarnished had already defeated a demigod of the Golden Order. And such a strange one, no less. She wondered just what this Tarnished story was. What had led him here? How had he done all this? The Black Knife ringleader, so soon? Interesting. Raising her chin, she met the Tarnished's gaze with her own behind the mask. The curiosity was building. She was certain now that this Tarnished was not to be underestimated.
Oh, I'm sure it is going to be fine. Currently, you are seeing only my projection that I have left to the Volcano Manor. My true presence, my true body is at the Power of Bounty, a misty forest that has a lot of worm-like giant people that spout death blight.
Projection? She had never heard of such abilities. It sounded almost impossible. And yet, the Tarnished seemed rather confident about all of this. Still, she was not sure if she believed him. How on earth could one project themselves to such a degree? If this was true, then, if he had the ability to do something like that, then this Tarnished truly would be one of the most useful tools that the Manor could have at their disposal. She would have to tread carefully. Just how much of this Tarnished's claims were true.
I can tell you who teaches me the skill.
Sorcerer. Again, she was surprised. It seemed that every word out of this Tarnished's mouth only served to shock her even more. Was that even possible? And if it was, why on earth did he tell her all these things? Not only did this Tarnished have the ability to be in two places at once, he also had the ability to use sorcery. She was at a loss for words. All she could do was stare at the Tarnished, her mouth agape.
Projection itself doesn't do anything. It cannot fight, it cannot speak or anything. It's basically just a projection, but it is still a useful tool to collect information and share information from the place to place.
A projection made by sorcery. And this Tarnished was able to do this with little to no effort. She shook her head in disbelief. She couldn't even imagine the possibilities this power could bring to the Volcano Manor. She had to have this Tarnished in her corner.
Of course, we can do business. That is fine. But I would like to ask you if you... How are you doing?
That question was sudden. She was taken off guard once more by the Tarnished. Why would he ask her that all of a sudden? I suppose I am doing well. Why do you ask?
Why not?
What was it about this Tarnished that made him so difficult to understand? His methods, his goals, his mindset? Even the simplest things he did were difficult to figure out. And this question, it should have been one with a simple answer. But for some reason, she found herself pausing for a moment, thinking about the question. Why was he asking no? Why should he care about her answer? Was this some sort of trick? Or was the Tarnish actually worried about her? She almost laughed at that thought. Hannes, you say? Then you may call me Tanith.
Tanith. Got it.
He almost corrected him on the pronunciation, but she decided against it. It was almost endearing the way he said it. For some reason, it was not unwelcome to her. She found herself relaxing more in his presence.
It seems that my Wolfhound Knight is fixated to fighting the reoccurring imp spirit that just comes back to life time and time again. It seems that I need to train that thing more. He's very unruly.
She cocked a brow at that comment. Wolfhound Knight? You have a Wolfhound Knight? And it is fixated on an imp? Why?
No, Bloodhound Knight. Named Loh.
Bloodhound Knight, Lo. Oh, great. The Tarnished was speaking in tongues again. She took a deep breath and pinched at the bridge of her nose. She understood the Tarnished less every second she spent with him. How was he expecting her to understand what was going on in his head? Still, this was her chance to get more information. Could you elaborate, please?
Oh, his name is Knight Flo, and he's a Bloodhound. You know, those knights that have pointy helmets and who have what is a Bloodhound Wang or something, that kind of named weapon, and they just crawl around like a dogs.
She let out an exasperated sigh as the Tarnished continued on with his word salad. It seemed that she was going to have to pull the information out of him by force. You mean the Bloodhound Knights? She asked, her voice just shy of irritated.
Yes, that's what I meant.
It made a little more sense now. At least what the Tarnished was talking about. Your Bloodhound Knight is interested in a spirit? What do you mean? It keeps respawning.
It's an imp spirit that it is interested in. It doesn't follow me. I summoned it to help me with the battle, but it just stays there and fights it. Very unruly, very unique, independent thing.
A spirit imp, eh? Those things were certainly irritating at best. But the Tarnished was saying that it kept respawning over and over? How on earth could that be? No, more importantly, why is it that your Bloodhound Knight has taken interest in this imp spirit?
I don't know. It annoys me. It doesn't follow me. It is very... Come on, come here. I order it, but it doesn't. It just stays there.
Couldn't help but let out a snort at that. It was almost amusing, the way he described his hound. It seemed like it was almost like a disobedient pet, the way he was talking. Perhaps your hound does not listen because it deems the imp spirit far more interesting than you, she teased.
I love him still. It's fine. You have to be understanding when you know.
He does sound like a handful. She paused, trying to decipher the end of that sentence. But all that did was make her more confused. What was that at the end?
It was me just doubting myself and my articulation.
You doubt your articulation, she repeated, still confused by the end. It was as if he was speaking in another language entirely. She shook her head, trying to clear her thoughts. Well, you have made sense up until now. I can still understand you for the most part.
Well, that is good. That is good.
Yes, that is good. Again, she found herself somewhat lost in this conversation. This Tarnished, no, Hannes, said the oddest of things. Sometimes it was hard to distinguish when he was simply saying nonsense, and when he was actually serious. Still, he was at the very least entertaining to listen to. She let out a sigh and shook her head. Then, an idea came to her. Wait, hold on. You said you summoned the spirits, yes?
Oh, yes, yes. And I see you are bothered by my speech whenever I speak, so I can presume that you find my type of speech patterns and my articulation strange. It is normal, because I don't speak English as my first language.
Was it? That explains so much. It was all beginning to make more sense. Ah, I see. That explains things. She almost found herself giggling. A commoner then, eh? You really fit the part, it seems. I can't let myself get too drunk, of course. I have an image to maintain. Somewhat relieved that it was empty. However, she still found herself curious to know the location of the tower. Perhaps it could still be a useful location for the rest of the recusants. Where was this sorcery tower exactly? She furrowed her brow, silently repeating the name in her mind, trying to commit it to memory. Then it hit her. A tower in the middle of a Muriel lake. Was this Tarnished really going to make her guess? Her eye twitched and she let out an exasperated sigh. She was getting tired of this charade, she really was. Wait, you're talking about the Church of Vows? That is what you mean, no?
Search of Faust, it's on the Leonia. I'm on the Altus Plateau. This is the, it's pretty easy. It's the misty forest that has the large, horrible looking worm people who murder all kind of Lovecraftian things, and they spout death blight and are very dangerous.
Her eyes widened and her jaw nearly dropped at the Tarnished description. He was describing Nokron, the eternal city that lie below the plateau. The very same place where the Fingerslayer blade was kept. But how did the Tarnished end up there? Still, she shook her head and decided to ask a question. Wait, what did you say those horrible-looking things were spouting again?
Something nonsense, something. And there is a big one over there.
She let out an exasperated sigh. Nonsense again. Really? Spouting nonsense and chanting something she could not understand was all he could do to describe the creatures he saw? She was beginning to wonder if he was doing it on purpose, just to drive her insane at this point. Is there anything you can tell me about them that isn't nonsense? He groaned. It was the Altus Plateau then. How exactly he'd made it there was a mystery in itself. But she supposed he did answer some of her questions, at least. Her curiosity had been appeased for the time being. Fine, I suppose that will do for now. What do you plan to do now that you've collected these ruins? Continue on?
If you're wondering how I get access to Altus Plateau, I have the three routes. I have gone through them all. There was a roadside secret path. There is the main road that had the lift that I collected 2 of the medallions. And there was one secret route, the Iron Virgin that was led to Volcano Manor on its cellar place. I defeated 2 of the Iron Virgins there and get access to the, what was the, oh shit. I was eaten by the large worm-like creature, alive, just now.
Eaten? He was eaten by a worm-like creature, and he didn't even seem fazed by it. She shook her head, trying to process the information she had just heard. It was so strange. You were eaten by a worm, she asked, her tone of voice completely flat, unable to hide her complete and utter disbelief. Or was that legitimately what happened? She really couldn't tell with him at this point, not anymore. That is great. Good for you. You were eaten and still survived. Terrific, she said, her tone still completely flat. How did you escape? This was just getting more and more bizarre. He died and was reborn at a site of grace? That would somewhat explain, well, everything. But even then, this Tarnished continued to confuse and intrigue her. She hummed softly, contemplating on her next question. I see. And this immortality, that is what every Tarnished has, you say?
It just spouts death like everywhere, and it's very ugly.
She rolled her eyes once more, groaning in annoyance. Why was this Tarnished refusing to give a straight answer? The description of the great worm beast in the forest, however, caught her attention. Hold on, what forest are you speaking of now? You're not in the Forbidden Lands, are you?
Can you repeat the question? I'm quite busy actually. I'm almost affected by death blight. This is quite difficult actually, this battle.
She let out an annoyed huff, feeling annoyed at his constant stalling. I asked where you are now. You're not in the Forbidden Lands, are you?
I'm at the fucking misty forest in the Altus Plateau. Is that good enough description? There are worm beasts that causes death like there is an air tree. I told you the name of the tower. What more you can want from me?
She took a deep breath, trying to calm herself. He was a really annoying Tarnished. She was starting to realize. She exhaled slowly. You are at the Woodfolk Ruins, located on the Altus Plateau. I have the location marked, if I remember correctly. She was surprised by that, she had to admit. It wasn't quite easy to get access to the lift without the medallions, and no Tarnished she knew of would take the Iron Virgin's route. She exhaled deeply, feeling a headache beginning to appear. She rubbed at her temples, waiting a few moments before she spoke once more. All right, so you went through the Iron Virgins to get from Liurnia of the Lakes to the Altus Plateau, correct?
Correct.
She took a deep breath, exhaling slowly in an attempt to soothe her headache. Okay, but why? Why would you go up through the Iron Virgins instead of the lift?
For fun.
Almost face-palmed herself. Of course he did it for fun. Why couldn't he have said so in the first place? Instead of dragging this out so. She shook off the lingering annoyance and moved on to her next question.
Yes, I don't know their names, but they are 3 times taller than most people. They have very long necks, worm-like mouths with 100 little tentacles out. Most of them hide themselves in the yellow or green garments, and they don't speak our language, they just speak guttural sounds.
With long necks, tentacles, and in various shades of yellow and green. And they were 3 times bigger? That sounded like the kindred of rot. But what he had said next was what shocked her the most. Wait, what? They spoke guttural sounds?
Yes, but it is not that important. I killed them pretty easily.
She stared at him, her eyes wide with disbelief. How could that not be important? How did he manage to kill them easily when there were so many of them? She waited a few moments before speaking once more. How do you know it is not important? They were just speaking in guttural sounds, didn't you say?
Yes, but can we just move on from this conversation? I am not too interested of explaining my battles, just sometimes. And I feel like that my limit of that topic has come to the fruition.
Rolling her eyes once more. It was definitely getting annoying at this point, but fine. They could move on from the subject of his battles. Fine. We can move on from the subject for now. Tell me one more bit of information then, before we do.
Make it good.
She sighed, rolling her eyes once more. He was really starting to get on her nerves by this point. Just answer this one thing then. How did you manage to kill those those kindred of rot so easily?
Okay then. I do use the weapon named Winged Sight, and it goes very well with my strengths. That is all.
She had no idea what he was referring to at first. She'd never heard of the word Pakia Lentan before, or what Winged Sight even meant. Then it hit her. The sword. The sacred relic sword? Is that what you mean?
It's a sight. You know, what farmers use to collect the crops. That kind of a weapon. It has a blade like angel wings.
She stared at him, completely baffled by that description. The sword looked nothing like a scythe. It seemed she now had an idea on how exactly he was so easily taking on so many kindred of rot. She would definitely have to look into this, yes. It's called the Sacred Relic Sword. You said it worked well with your strengths. What strengths exactly?
I am not interested of continuing this conversation. I will stop right here. We shall continue from other points of view, or other topics.
Fought back a groan, knowing that continuing this conversation would be like talking to a wall at this point. So she sighed, relenting for now. They could talk about other things, at least fine. Fine. We won't talk about your battles anymore then. I will move on to something different.
Can you tell me about yourself?
The Tarnished looked absolutely exhausted by the sound of his voice. Me? Sure, I can tell you. What would you like to know?
You can tell me something about yourself, can't you? Why I have to ask something of you? Can't you tell anything about yourself without me asking specifics?
Couldn't help but roll her eyes at how the Tarnished phrased his words. Sometimes she couldn't tell if he was purposefully doing this, or if it was just how he talked. Either way, it was starting to get somewhat grating. All right. I can tell you little things about me without needing to ask. But you need to be more specific. Do you want to know my name, my background, my purpose here?
Yeah, your purpose. Let's say just your purpose.
She nodded, keeping her composure. Well, this was new. No one asked about her purpose. Not directly, at least. It was still a vague question, but... My purpose is to serve the Manor and the will of the Lord of Blasphemy. I assist the Tarnished who have been invited to the Manor with their tasks and the furthering of the Lord's goal. My own goals, well, those are of a personal matter. She chuckled amusedly. Return the same courtesy she had, he says. Like he had been giving information this whole time. She sighed, debating on what to reveal. Personal matters were personal for a reason. Did the Tarnished really need to know about those? Well, if he was going to return the favor and give some information about himself, then she could give some back as well. She exhaled slowly, trying to figure out exactly what to reveal. Fine, I'll tell you a little about my own goals, but you have to do the same as well. So I'm to start now then. My personal goals, as you may call them. Those are varied, I suppose. I serve the Lord of Blasphemy, his purpose and his will. It is his goals that are the most important. But mine own, I want to see the Erd Tree burn. I wish to see it set aflame, engulfed in the hottest flames of the Fell God. I want to see it gone.
Why?
It was a good question, she supposed. And that if she was being honest, she still didn't even know the full answer to. She hummed softly, contemplating on the answer. Do you know of the Golden Order and of the Greater Will?
Yeah, they're pretty cool.
She almost rolled her eyes at the simplistic answer. Just pretty cool with all he had to say on the subject. She sighed, moving on from that, though they're not. The Order, the Greater Will, the Fingers, all them. They do not care for us. Do not care for the lands between, in its true state. They only care for the Erd Tree.
Can you name me all the factions and people you care for?
All the factions and people? She took a moment to consider her answer. What people did she truly care for? There weren't that many. At least not within the lands between, well, it's not too many, I would think. I suppose I would name Lord Rykard and the Tarnished who work under him. And as little as I would like to admit, there is another. A man who I care for, dearly.
That sounds a little bit less than Golden Order. I think they care a little bit more of the variations of people than you just named. And you called them bad because they don't care, but you seem to care even less.
Scowled at that, bristling at the implication in his words. The Golden Order was terrible, it was just that way. She opened her mouth to argue, before taking a deep breath, forcing herself not to snap at him. The Greater Will, the Golden Order, the Erd Tree. They're the root of the problem here. They're the ones trying to claim control, trying to dictate the lands between.
They are dictating the lands between. That's just natural order of things.
Order of things? She almost snorted at the irony of that. The Greater Will had literally written an entire order out. It was all based upon the rules of the Golden Order. And how do you know the proper order of things?
What is the Golden Order? Can you tell me about that? You seem very knowledgeable, or you seem very convinced of your crusade against them. So, what you can tell me about that?
She nodded, a smirk forming on her lips. Oh, this would be interesting, to say the least. How much did the Tarnished know of the Golden Order? The Golden Order is the very foundation of the lands between now. It's the set of rules the Greater Will wants to enforce. The rules it wishes to have implemented upon the entire lands between, because it can't tolerate anyone or anything that's different from it.
Are there like rules to follow nature? Are there follows of the certain edicts how to we behave like a day to day? Or is it like a more of an ideological or philosophical way that how we look at the world? Is it based on the logic or just a singular person or couple different factions? Or is it like a certain balance from all of them?
She paused, furrowing her brow as she considered her answer. There were a lot of rules, that was for certain. Too many to count, really. Well, yes. There's rules to follow nature, rules on how to behave, rules on how to fight, rules on who you should marry. All of it is based around the ideology of the Golden Order and the Greater Will. The rules are set by the Greater Will and the Fingers. The ideology of the Greater Will flows through it all. All right, let me tell you a story. In the Golden Order, there is a law on how farmers are to plow their fields. They are to plow around the edges, never crossing over the middle. To break this, well, let's just say the Greater Will is not too fond of rule breakers.
Is there like some kind of negative effect that this happens if you bore this to the middle? Is it like a more effective if you do it outside? Is it like following that kind of method, or is it just certain shape for just sake of the shape?
The corner of her lip lifting in a smirk. Yes, this was getting interesting. It was, oddly enough, refreshing to talk about the rules of the Golden Order to someone else. Why don't you venture a theory, Tarnished? Why do you think that's the rule?
I think it's the rule because it's the best way to grow the crops, and anything less would be waste of energy or resources and talent. I think that is the logic. There is a certain right way to doing things, and doing anything less is away from Golden Order, and that is the one of the core aspects from it, I would think.
She chuckled softly, amused at the Tarnished's guess. He was fairly close, really, and you'd be right in that regard. That is indeed the logic behind the rule. But that is not all of it either. No, the logic isn't just based around the efficiency of it. The Golden Order doesn't care about whether something is effective or not. It cares about one single thing: control.
I would like to have the actual list of the situations when Golden Order rules are inherently misplaced or making things harder or less viable when they have been grinding and not working.
Almost laughed at just how blunt that question was. Straight to the point, then. All right, very well, she would entertain him with an answer.
Huh?
Well, there's the one I told you earlier for one. There's a rule on marriage and unions. Another one on how to fight. The rules against the Albinorics, the Misbegotten, the rule of not being allowed to use or create a portal to the Round Table Hold. Need I go on?
Round Table Hold is pretty secret place. I understand the rule not to create portals in there. I agree with that sentiment.
She gave a small nod. That was true, it was a secret. But it was still ridiculous that the rules even prohibited Tarnished from using such a portal. Such a thing could prove useful for so many. Yes, the secrecy I can at least somewhat understand. But the rules upon the Albinorics and the Misbegotten? Those I do not understand. Especially not the Albinorics.
But you torture Albinorics. I have seen their corpses. You have done very terrible things to them. That sounds very hypocritical of you, mentioning how Golden Order is treating them.
He felt anger flash through her at the accusation, her eyes narrowing. The Tarnished did not understand her at all for making that assumption. I did not. Do not place the blame of that on me. Yes, I have seen the corpses of the Albinorics. I have seen what's happened to them, but I have never tortured them. Not once. Do not assume things you know not about, Tarnished.
Ringleader is guilty, even that their hands remain clean.
He was bristling now, hands clenching into fists. It was bad enough for someone to accuse her of such things, but to then compare her to the ringleader. Tanith almost growled, eyes narrowing to a dangerous degree.
I was just using term ringleader is a neutral term that describes the leader of the certain group or a faction that does something.
It's a term used to describe the head of a group, yes. But why use that word of all things?
Okay, let's continue of the Golden Order, because what you have named, I don't think justify burning the tree and causing all the conflict that you have caused. I need better justifications.
She was, in a way, glad to move on to another subject. She was still fuming over being accused of torturing Albinorics. But fine, she would move forward in this line of questioning. The burning of the Erd Tree? You want justifications for that?
It's a very serious crime. It's heresy. It's blasphemy.
She almost scoffed at the words. A crime. Yes, it's quite blasphemous, I suppose. But it must be done. Done. The Erd Tree and the Greater Will cannot be allowed to stand anymore.
That doesn't answer. You're just some insane person who has to do something just because. Justifications, if you could.
She was growing irritated with the Tarnished again, at the implication that she was insane. The Greater Will had controlled the lands between for long enough. The Erd Tree needed to go. It is the reason why nothing can change, why all the problems remain. Do you deny that? Do you deny that the Greater Will is the reason there is no freedom anymore?
I think the Golden Order never had the complete control, and that's why things are so bad, because of the freedom. I'm more of embracing the opposition of this argument and hypotheticals. Let's just assume that the freedom and the chaos that you have said was the bad thing is from the conflicts that come from the three factions that are outside of the Golden Order, and because of them there's conflict. Golden Order, if it were to get full control and its full potential, there would be peace.
She almost laughed at the statement, shaking her head at the Tarnished. Peace. With the Greater Will in absolute control, the Greater Will would never bring peace. If anything, it would bring oppression. No freedom of thought, no freedom of opinion. All under the strict hand of the Greater Will and its Golden Order. You're blind. If you can think anything that comes from such a thing would be peaceful and beneficial.
Would there be wars?
He paused at that, before scoffing a bit. Wars? You think they wouldn't happen anymore? Well, I suppose the Wars of the Three Fingers would never come to be, but it wouldn't stop the wars between the Tarnished, or the wars between the demigods. There would still be plenty of bloodshed, that's for sure.
Because they don't follow the Golden Order, because they want to do their own things. That's why there is war.
A small smirk formed on Tanith's face, her eyes narrowing in annoyance. Oh, is it? Is that why there is war? Truly? Have you ever actually stopped to think about why there is such a battle against the Golden Order in the lands between? Why people would be so willing to oppose the Order?
But I would like to actually have the actual justifications, the material good justifications why your faction is better than the Golden Order. Why, how you justify the horrible war that you, Rykard has claimed towards the Golden Order. Or something else than just growing crops, or marriage, or little bit misbegotten, or the albinaric treatment, because you have been worse at all of those things. And I don't find your reasoning too convincing.
She grumbled to herself softly, annoyance at the Tarnished stubbornness growing within her. How stubborn could one man be, really? He was proving to be far too aggravating. Tanith took a few deep breaths before nodding, forcing herself to not... If I am to answer your question, I need to know something first. And don't bother trying to avoid the question this time. Do you in any way support the Golden Order and its rules?
I might. Right now I'm very independent factor here.
fine. If you somehow support the Order and its rules, then let me ask you another. What are your views on the demigods?
I will collect all the runes and defeat them all.
That time, Tanith did actually roll her eyes. Of course, he was going to do the typical tarnished thing and collect runes or something. Why would she bother expecting any different? Yes, the runes, I get it. You wish to collect them. I was more asking about the demigods themselves, not the runes.
But I think of them specifically. How they are, who they are, and why they are. Is that what you're asking? Not that what I'm going to do with them.
Finally, he at least got the general idea. Maybe, just maybe, she was getting somewhere with him. Yes, good, that's what I'm asking. So, go on then. What's your opinion of them?
Godric the Crafty, what is your opinion of that man?
Tanith scoffed slightly, her nose wrinkling as she thought about the man. Godric, what a disgusting weakling of a demigod. She almost pitied the fool, if he wasn't just such an arrogant fool. She thought for a moment or two before giving her verdict. Pathetic, in more ways than one. He was weak, both in strength and in moral character.
I can just agree with you there. I don't have anything too much oppose that view. How about Rennala, the Queen of the Full Moon? Rennala.
Tanith almost felt a pang of pity when thinking of Rennala. The poor queen, locked away in the Grand Library, surrounded by her puppets and copies of her former lover. How pathetic a state that poor lady had fallen to. Sad, that's what she is. To be so blinded and manipulated by that fool Radagon.
What do you think of Radagon then? He is the spitting image and the resemblance and the, how to say, embodiment of the Golden Order and its values.
She grumbled a bit, her eyes narrowing at the topic of Radagon. She disliked speaking about him. Of all the gods, she disliked that man the most. It's like the Golden Order, he too was a parasite to the lands between. He is the embodiment of all that is wrong with the Golden Order. Too controlling, too self-righteous, too arrogant.
Self-righteous, too arrogant, too conquering. Sounds like your beloved Rykard. I think they are great values, great aspects of this character. Something you judge him for are what you love in Rykard. That is a hypocrisy.
Tanith almost growled at the comparison of Rykard to that bastard of a demigod. Rykard was nothing like that golden fool. But she did not have the time to argue it. She simply gave the Tarnished a warning glare, before nodding and gesturing for him to continue. Continue then.
Rani the Witch.
Rani? Tanith actually chuckled softly at the idea, Rani. The girl wasn't the worst of the demigods. Tanith almost respected her for the way she had gone against the Golden Order. Well then, she's got a bit more spine than any of the others at least. She's not as pathetic as the rest at any rate.
Of course you would say that.
It's my opinion, and I'm right about it. Rani has much more nerve than her siblings or half-siblings.
I have met and I do know Rani personally. I am not very fond of her, let's just say.
Admittedly, was a bit of a surprise to her. It was very rare to meet someone who had personally met Rani. Curious, Tanith almost took a step closer, her eyes widening with slight disbelief. You've actually met Rani, the Lunar Princess? What do you mean you're not fond of her?
I do appreciate Godwin the Golden, and I don't forgive Rani for murdering that man.
Tanith almost snarled at his appreciation of that fool. Why people still held so much respect for Godwin, she would never understand. The man was not that great. You appreciate Godwin, the fool who brought us to this state in the first place.
Not him. His death. Rani is to blame.
Don't you understand? If it weren't for that golden fool, Rani wouldn't have done anything. He's the one to blame for everything in the first place.
That's right. Godwin was the perfect lamb to be murdered. He was perfect sacrifice for her malice. Without Godwin, without this perfect sacrifice, she wouldn't have able to break Marika and cause all this chaos without this perfect lamb of a sacrifice.
She was starting to get frustrated with the Tarnished. He seemed determined to find every excuse for Godwyn, to paint him as the perfect person that he wasn't. It was annoying Tanith to no end he was not the perfect lamb, he was not the perfect sacrifice. He was an idiot, too stupid and blinded to see Rani's discomfort with Radagon's plans for her. If he truly was perfect like you claim, he'd be alive.
I laugh out loud because I know what Rykard is and what he does, and this whole hypocrisy and her words are just too amusing to myself, but I don't tell this to her, and I will not tell this to her. I just laugh, and laugh out loud.
Snapped her eyes into a glare at the sudden laughter. Why was he laughing? Why was he finding any of this funny? It was annoying her more and more with his every joke. Stop laughing. Nothing about this is funny, idiot. She was getting too annoyed to keep herself under control. Tanith took a sharp step forward, glaring up at the Tarnished with a cold ferocity. She was tired of playing his games. It was time to get serious. Tanith paused, tilting her head in confusion. What was he doing? Why was he suddenly snapping and the Tarnished was? One moment he was right there, then poof, gone. Tanith stood there, confused and somewhat stunned. Her eyes darted around, as if she half expected him to materialize behind her in the blink of an eye. She shook her head to snap herself out of the daze, returning to a more composed state.